For question 1 of our evaluation, we are asked whether our media product uses, develops, or challenges forms and conventions of real media products. So to begin, I'll first talk about how my product hits these conventions through narrative. Firstly, my film is based on an urban location. This instantly works with the genre of action, as most action films stereotypically take place in built-up areas, for example, James Bond. This also helps with the busy city life relating well with the chaotic quick cuts. The urban environment also works well with my characters, who are a bunch of teenage boys that have lived in the city their whole life. These boys live an average life of skating and hanging out. This piece is then disturbed when one of the boys is stabbed. This is when the action begins and the real narrative starts. This kickstart of action after we are introduced to the basic narrative is very conventional, as it gives the audience time to create a bond with the characters, creating more emotional attachment. For example, in James Bond's opening sequence Skyfall, when Mr. Bond is shot, we are instantly aware that this is where the action begins. The 4 micro aspects of my film also clearly represent conventions of real media products for the genre of action, starting with cinematography. Many of the pan and close-ups of the skateboards are used to represent the fast pace of the story and also give emphasis on the action-packed lives of the cast. Another example of how I used extreme close-ups to create the feeling of action was through the close-ups of the knife and the face reactions when the main character gets stabbed. This draws out contrast to the flow of the scene as it is very sharp and quick. I used the 85mm lens to help me create this effect. The colour red is also used in one of my shots to connote danger when the character approaches the stabbing location. Mise-en-scenes use multiple ways to address the genre of action. For example, I used balaclavas for the gang members. This was used to hide the identity of the characters, giving the audience an obvious hint as to who the antagonist is. This is stereotypical, as every action film is obvious to who the bad guy and the good guy is. A knife is another prop used to emphasize who the antagonist is, and what would an action film be without a couple weapons showing the danger that our protagonist must face. The outfits of our main skater characters is a counter-type. This is because most heroes are seen to be wearing a suit, dressed formal. However, I found that the style of clothing used within our film suited the urban personality of our cast more. Sound is shown to play a big part in our film. When the character is stabbed, we can hear non-diegetic white noise and a heartbeat. This is used to contrast the quick cuts of action beforehand, in order for the audience to grasp the full emotional value of the scene. 2 different soundtracks are used, the first being very slow, used to build up the narrative, and the second is fast paced and upbeat to show the action, and also to relate to the quick cuts. Editing is used many times through synced quick cuts, which makes the audience feel in sync with the action, as if they are joining the character on their journey, shown in movies like Drive with car chases. Another example of editing is used when the VHS style camera effect is used to create a grimy feel and yet again add to the urban environment of the narrative.